So today's presenters, we have with us Gwen Counts, our general manager, Lori Christner, who is our billing supervisor, Cole Brodeen, our engineering manager, Bobby Johnson, who does our energy services, Dean Kunke, who serves as our safety director and has a lot of knowledge from the field. He came to that position as a lineman, so he's been out in the field and understands what goes on out there. And then you've got myself, Marcia Bonshoff, and I'm glad to have you here. Here's a look at our agenda for the day. We have a lot of topics to cover, and I think it'll be a very informational day. We're going to tell you just a little bit about Dawson Power. Dawson Power serves the area in white on that map, and we have service centers in North Platte, Gothenburg, Lexington, Sumner, Kearney, and Ravenna. And so we've got our personnel spread out across our territory. We also serve many villages in that area. And of course, you know, irrigation is big to us. Okay, so how big is irrigation to us? We serve about 5,700 accounts, and that makes up about 25% of the customer base that we have. But the other part of that story is how much energy the irrigation customers use. And 2020, which was more of a normal year for us, they used about 29% of the kilowatt hours we sold. So, you know, we do really pay attention to our irrigation customers. All of our customers are important to us, but we do understand the challenges that a lot of our irrigators face. Dawson is a public power district. Public power is special to Nebraska because we are a 100% public power state. That means that you have local control. You vote on who represents you on the board. We strive for affordable rates, safety, and reliability. Those are the benchmarks for public power across our state. So our board of directors, they're chosen in a general election. The president of our board is Pat Hecox from Gothenburg. The vice president is Dan Mulbach from Kearney, and the treasurer is Craig Weegis from Riverdale. So you can see they come from all over our territory, and we'll show you a picture in a minute that shows you the rest of the board members as well. The board meetings are public, so if you would ever want to attend one, you are welcome to. The next board meeting is February 3rd at 10 a.m. We would ask that you give us a call before you come. Occasionally, we'll change the date of a board meeting. And right now, with the whole COVID thing going on, just call to make sure that we know that we have enough space and what we need to do to let everybody in. You can also make comments by email on our directors page on our website. You can email the directors, or you can send a letter. Like I say, you can come and talk in person. They have a special part in their meeting that's just for customer comments. And here are our directors. You can see that they do come from all across the territory. Okay, with that, we will move to rates. I don't see any questions right away, so we'll move on to our 2021 rates. So for the new season, there is going to be an increase. The increase varies by the control option. So some rates went up just a little bit more than others. What we did was we used a cost of service study. Those are an extensive project. We look at all of our costs and try to assign them to each rate class. The idea is that no rate class should subsidize another rate class. So you don't want your residential people paying more to make the rate in irrigation lower or vice versa. You want them to represent the costs that they bring and distribute those costs fairly. The rate increase for irrigation this year was part of a multi-year increase. When we last did our rate study, we found that the irrigation rate needed to increase, and the board voted to do that increase over a period of time so that those increments were a little smaller and perhaps a little easier to adjust to with your business plan. We would like you to know that Dawson is doing our part to control our rates by controlling our spending. If you've noticed in the past few years, we have done a great deal of construction. It's been a fantastic program. Part of that was to improve our aging facilities. Some of our lines have been out there for 50 years or more. So improving those and increasing our reliability has been important. What we have done is we have stopped using outside contractors, and instead we are using our own construction crews whenever possible. There's a few things that our construction crews can't do, but we found that this would be a better way for us to get some of this work done, maybe on a little slower pace, but more cost effective. So here's a look at the rates, and we'll give you a time to kind of check out whichever option you may be on. The horsepower charges went up $1 per horsepower. And then the energy charges kind of vary by option there, and standby stayed the same. Again, these will be printed in your irrigation newsletter that will be coming out probably sometime in February here. Okay. Seeing no questions, we're going to move on. And I'd like you to meet Lori Christner. She has become our billing supervisor for this season. Lori has been with us a number of years and did a lot of account maintenance and billing before this. So with that, I will let Lori get started. Lori, I think you're on mute.
That better?
There you go.
Hey, sorry. Hey. Well, good morning, everybody. Like Marcia said, my name is Lori, and I'm the Supervisor of Consumer Accounts and Records. And today I'm just going to go over a few billing items that we hope to make your life a little easier. First off, I'm going to talk about Smart Hub. Smart Hub is an application that allows our customers to monitor their accounts online, either on a computer or on their phone. Some of the great benefits that Smart Hub has to offer is you can make your online payments. You can store payments online, like if you would like recurring, or you can just make a one-time online payment. It also allows you to monitor your usage. You can use daily if you'd like. It allows you to access all your previous billings for accounting purposes, and the notifications, you can receive email or text if you like, alerting you to when you have a new bill or when your bill's due. So there's a lot of benefits. Okay, on Smart Hub, if you log into dawsonpower.com, our website, and if you look under payments, there's you can click on account login. that will take you to the Smart Hub screen. Or if you see under account login, there's also a make a payment. And that's where you could just make like a one-time payment if you didn't want to sign up. But otherwise, okay, here we go. And then the next screen would be to log into my account. And that'll take you here. This is Smart Hub. Now, if some of you are probably already signed up and very familiar with this, you would, but if you're not, you would click on the new user here, and you would go in and you would sign up using your email and a password, which is would take you to the next screen. There we go. So let's say you've signed up for Smart Hub, and this is the first screen that you would see. You can see that it'll list all your accounts here. It'll tell you the due date of your bills, how much is due. You can go on and pay your account. And then the next screen will show you, you can also, there's a drop down that'll list all your accounts. And as you can see, this farmer has a lot. And you can scroll through and find the one that you want and see any billing history you like. Just so you know, I've had probably one of the most common questions I get from farmers now this time of year is wanting copies of their bills for their accountants. And so you could, by signing up for Smart Hub, you can access all your historical information, your horsepower usage. And in this case, what'd be really great too is, since we're going to be talking about power factor, and this was the first year we actually included it on our bill, you can go back in here, find your bill from this fall, and if you've lost your papers or anything like that, and you can go access those to remind you what your power factor was. Anyway, on another option that we have, and this is just another thing that I've had a lot of irrigators call me about. A lot of times okay, so like you have a farming account, it's like a corporation of some sort. But let's say you also want to pay your house service or maybe a monthly bill or what have you. We do have the option to connect all those accounts together. So this screen kind of shows you how to do that. Like I said, I'm just going this just pretty general. On this, you would go into my profile, and under manage my register accounts, so you're registered, you would go here and click on add an account. So as long as that other account that you're wanting to add on is not already registered with Smart Hub, you would be able to click here and by using your email, you would be able to set that up so that you could do like a one-time payment and not have to be, have multiple logins, that sort of thing. So anyway, the next screen will, okay, well, that kind of covers Smart Hub. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have, please call. We're we're here to help you set things up. And next off is, these are just some of the deadlines that we have as far as irrigators, and will mark your calendars. All their load management options, if you want to make any changes, are due March 15th. Of course, we'll be billing horsepower the beginning of April, and those charges will be due April 26th. Our first possible day control is May 1st. The last possible day is September 15th. And then I try to bill a little early so you guys can, get your accounting done. And I know a lot of people want to know what their bills are. So I try to get them out the latest November 1st, your energy bills, but those will be due November 29th. And just a few other things I'd like to go over. Please update any account information, phone numbers, anything like that, so that if we have outages that we can contact you. You can do that through Smart Hub too, and through our website. So that really helps us out. Another issue that we've had in the past, every year that we go through, is when you've received your statements, and we know that there are sometimes different different like families split portions up between each other. We just ask that when you pay that bill, with different checks and that sort of thing is to actually let us know what the account number it is that you're paying on it, and not let us do that accounting for you, because sometimes we don't always know. We get the amount and we apply it wrong because we don't know for sure what you're wanting. So we just ask that you be very clear on how you want to pay that. And also just make sure you mail your payments early. It seems lately that the mail's been a little bit slower. So to avoid any late charges or interest, that sort of thing, please get your payments in timely. And that's about all I have, Marcia.
Sounds good.
But please do know that I did go over this very quickly, and there's a lot more to offer on Smart Hub. And so please give us a call. If you need any help setting it up, we'll walk you through it. We've got great help here. Everybody knows, and they'd help you out. So, and please let me know if you have any questions.
We were talking
Okay.
too earlier about where is Connie? Folks have done business with Connie for years.
Yes, I think everybody knows Connie. Yeah. She finally, lucky girl, finally got to retire. So we miss her, and she was a plethora of information. I mean, she was here so long, so I have some big shoes to fill, obviously. And I know I've talked to some. I'm usually the person that when irrigators call, if I'm here, I get that call right away. So hopefully I'll get to know everybody just like Connie did. So I don't see any questions. No questions?
No, I don't see any either. I thought for sure, but
me too.
As Lori said, make sure that you call in. Our billing personnel are really good at walking you through getting these things set up and finding the information that you need. Smart Hub can be so helpful, and especially people that go to a digital meeting would probably enjoy having a digital bill. So
totally, yes.
All right.
So
we'll move on here. Cole, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you. Okay.
Good.
We're in good shape. Okay.
Yeah, so many of you may know me. I'm the engineering manager here. And if you call in for overrides during load control, I'm the guy that you get to talk to some of the time. If you're not lucky enough to get Rose or Marty instead. So if not, feel free to give me a call if you have any questions. Make sure if you have questions during my presentation, you use the question and answer box to ask those so that I can try to ask them while we're going through the presentation here. So to start off, power factor, is this a new requirement? No, actually, since about 1972 at least, we were able to find in the records, capacitors have been required on all motors of 10 horsepower or larger. Recently, people have been using VFDs also to meet that requirement. So we waive the requirement for anyone that has a VFD since they're supposed to correct power factor as well. If you are not sure if you're getting a penalty applied or not, in your fall bill, you can check under the current service details section for each well. You see an example on your screen there. And the very bottom line item is the irrigation no capacitor charge. So this charge is going to be replaced with this new power factor requirement. Okay. So you see, we talked a little bit about the old way. Basically, you had to have a capacitor. If you don't have a capacitor there, you could pay the penalty. We really never verified that anybody's capacitor works, just that it was checked, just that it was a visual check that it was there or not, right? If you had a gray metal tin box and you wrote capacitor on the side and taped some wires to the side of the box, we might have counted that. Who knows? But now, thanks to our new AMI metering system, the new way is that we're going to use your actual data from your metering to calculate the power factor. So the penalty is now going to vary with the severity of the problem and the size of the system. And the size of the system is important because the larger your motor is, the more it affects power factor on our side of the meter. Some of you probably don't know what power factor is. I'm going to do my best to explain it. Power factor is a confusing topic a lot of times, and talking to engineers can be confusing. So this might be a tough combo, but if you have questions, like I said, get them in the chat and we'll make sure to answer them here. So the ratio of working power, that's your watts, or a lot of times we measure those in kilowatts, to the apparent power, which is volt amps or kilovolt amps. So work that gets things done versus work that wasn't useful, right? Many of you have probably seen a example that involves a beer mug, and while I enjoy a beer, it's just a little too early in the morning. So we're going to use a horse and a cart. I actually like this a lot better as a example. So everybody knows it takes work to pull a cart, right? Well, this cart happens to be on railroad tracks, and you're going to use your horse to pull it. So the horse, he doesn't like to walk on the railroad tracks. Now, ideally, for the horse to get the most bang for his buck, he wants to walk in front of the cart as close as possible. But he doesn't like walking on those rough railroad tracks, so he has to walk to the side of the tracks off at an angle there. So you can see the working power, the power that's actually pulling the cart forward, is what's going in the direction of the cart. Now, there's non-working power also, reactive power, right? If you've ever stood to the side and tried to pull something, you know it's harder to pull it than from the side than it is from straight ahead. So that non-working or reactive power in the case of an electric motor is VARs. Your total power, which is the combination of watts and VARs, and we can thank Mr. Pythagoras, who you probably haven't had to think about much since high school, for helping us calculate your total apparent power, which is volt amps. So you'll notice things that are measured in watts, your metering is measured in watts, things that are measured in volt amps. Your transformer is VA, so you'll hear us talk about how many kVA a transformer is, and you'll hear us talk about how many kW a demand charge is, or how many horsepower a demand charge is. kW and horsepower directly relate to each other.
So Cole,
yeah.
What I'm getting is you want your horse to walk closer to the tracks, but not exactly on the tracks, and that is better power factor.
Correct. Ideally, you'd have the horse in front of the cart as perfectly as possible, but we know that that's not possible, right? With an electric motor, there's too many variables there. It's too hard to get it perfect. So as we go through here, you'll see what's acceptable, and that's actually here on the next slide, right? So 100% is perfect power factor, but we're going to say anything that's better than 90% is good enough. Now, the reason that you don't want to necessarily be right at 100% is because it actually starts to go back down. You can't get to 100%. It's like a meter that's in the middle, right? If you go back this way, you go towards 90, but if you go back this way, you go towards 90. You want to keep the gauge straight up and down. So what happens if you're less than 90, right? If you're more than 90, nothing happens. That's acceptable. If you're less than 90, we're going to increase the calculated horsepower on your spring bill, and we're going to increase it in fixed charges based on that calculated horsepower. You're going to have to decide for yourself if the changes that it would take to fix this power factor justify the cost of the improvements, right? So if your system is above 90% without a capacitor, do you need to install one anyway? The answer is no. If you're above 90%, you're good enough. Whether that's because you have a VFD, because you have a incredibly efficient motor, for whatever reason, if you're above 90%, don't worry about it. You're not going to get an additional charge. So no longer will we be out looking for that capacitor, right? If you're above 90%, we don't care how you got there, just that you're there. So when are we going to start doing this? You guys have already seen some timelines probably come out in some of the publications, the irrigation newsletter, those kind of things. We printed power factor on your bill for the first time this fall. You'll notice, we'll show you an example in a little bit here where you can find that on your bill. So this year, we're giving you some time to consider what that charge may be for yourself and make changes if you see fit. We're going to print power factor on your bill again in the fall. So you can see if you did make a change this spring, how it affected your system. And then in 2022, we're going to start using that power factor to bill your new calculated demand. All right, so here's where you can find your power factor information, right? So if you've got a previous season's bill, particularly this fall's bill, look under the current service detail section there, and you'll see second from the bottom line there is power factor, right? This particular system has a power factor of 88.18%. They're awful close to 90. So that's going to be a real tough decision for them as to whether they need to improve or not. They may be okay with just paying the additional charge. It might be cheaper than having someone come put a capacitor on. Now, if you've got a new service, you're going to want to check your motor nameplate or with the motor manufacturer to get information about what your power factor might be while it's running at full load. Now, power factor fluctuates with the loads on the motor. So you'll want to make sure that we measure that at peak, right? If you're going to measure it yourself, and that your manufacturer gets that for you. Now, if you want to see how it's going to affect your horsepower on your bill, we have a handy tool we put on our website. So you can go to dawsonpower.com/calculator and use that to find your adjusted horsepower. In the example down below, this is a screenshot right from the calculator on the website. So you put in what your horsepower is off your bill or off your motor nameplate. You put in what your power factor is that either your manufacturer gave you or you found off of this fall's bill. And we're going to show you the adjusted horsepower right there. So for this particular person with a 30 horse motor and a 75% power factor, their adjusted horsepower is 36 horsepower. When we measure this, we're measuring it at your ultimate peak, right? So we measure your load all season long. We find when your motor pulled the highest amount of load that it had. And a lot of times that's when it also was running a swing arm if you had one, or also was going up a hill. Those kind of things affect peak, right? So you want to find what your motor is doing at the highest possible load it could be run at. And we'll take that time that the peak was measured, and then we'll look up and apply the power factor from that time. So that peak, it can occur at any time during the season. It's all going to depend on factors like I mentioned before, elevation of your field, and if you have swing arms or not, all those kind of things. So what can you do to fix this power factor, right? So capacitors are still king. They're still the main way power factor is corrected. So you can get a power factor correction capacitor. If you already have a capacitor, you're not getting that capacitor correction charge. So you know you have a capacitor there, but you look at your bill and you say, geez, I'm not above 90%. What's the deal? I have a capacitor. Why am I not above 90%? Well, maybe your capacitor was missized, right? Maybe it's too small, maybe it's much too large, and it already pushed you past 100% that far. Probably a better question is it still working? Capacitors do not last forever. So there's a good chance that some of these older capacitors that have been out there for a long time just aren't working. All right, well, let's say you've got a variable frequency drive, right? Those don't need capacitors. Why am I below 90% if I have a variable frequency drive? Well, the most likely culprit is that it's not programmed correctly to fix the power factor. So you're going to want to call the manufacturer of the variable frequency drive or the installer to get that corrected. Now, you don't have to correct your power factor. If you're okay paying a little extra because your power factor is below 90%, that's fine. Dawson Power will take that additional charge and we will use it to buy power factor correction equipment on our side of the meter. So here's a couple examples, right? The guy on the left here has a 98 horsepower motor with a right about 60% power factor. So he's clocking in the 148 horsepower roughly. You can see the two charges that he gets there before and after the adjustment. So this is an annual difference of $1,638. That's probably going to be worth it to put a new capacitor on and get that corrected, right? Now, let's say you're just a little 23 horse motor with about an 83% power factor. Well, that bumps you all the way from 23 to nearly 25. So your difference before and after the adjustment is only $62 a year. So maybe this one, you don't care if you have one on this year. Maybe you want to wait and fix it the following year. Maybe $62 is just not enough for you to worry about in an entire season. So if you chose not to correct that, that's fine. And actually, if the person on the left decided that they didn't want to correct that and are okay with paying that difference, that's fine as well. I called it a penalty earlier, but it's just a charge we're assessing, right? You can either fix this power factor on your end or we'll fix it on our end. So what causes poor power factor? Anything that is an inductive load causes your power factor to decrease, right? So some common examples, obviously electric motors is the big one. That is the number one cause of a reduced power factor. Also, things that can affect power factor are like customer transformers. If you've got a big customer transformer, say, that's stepping down from 480 volts to 240 volts for a old grain dryer service or a building you happen to have with your irrigation well or something. Or maybe you plug a tractor in there in the winter. Those kind of things can increase your power factor also. There's probably not much of this on customer service, and if so, it's probably not a major contributor to your power factor compared to your motor, but high intensity discharge lighting, so those are like yard lights, the high pressure sodium or old mercury vapor ones especially. But basically anything that needs an electromagnetic charge to operate is going to reduce power factor. If you've got a correction device that's over compensating, so it's putting you over 100%, that also could potentially be affecting your power factor. Basically, if your capacitor is way too large for the motor it's paired with. Okay, so if you've got a capacitor and it's not working, and you think to yourself, well, has this thing failed? It's very likely if it's an older capacitor. The most common reason of way they fail is just short circuiting, because over time, older capacitors dry up, over transients, over voltage and transients like lightning can reduce capacitor life, or if you have poor grounding at the panel when there's surges. High temperature can reduce capacitor life. So obviously, welcome to Nebraska. It gets a little warm in the summer, so those capacitors probably are experiencing some high temperatures, which would reduce their life. If you go to your capacitor and you open the little container that it comes in, you'll see in the picture here, the yellow arrow points at the box, which holds the capacitor on this particular service. And you see that the capacitor is bulging or it has an open pressure vent. That's a good indicator that that capacitor has failed and it's no longer doing its job. When your capacitor fails, your motor is still going to run. The capacitor will not stop your motor from running. So just because your capacitor's failed doesn't mean that you're going to be able to tell by a motor that won't start. So let's say you've got a VFD and it's below 90%. So what happened there? Or maybe your VFD's not working at all, not even letting your well start up. So one thing could be that it's not programmed properly. We've seen a lot of VFDs that are left at factory settings, and they have particularly high settings for their low voltage requirements, which has caused some issues for customers, especially these last couple summers. Over voltage, such as lightning, can cause this. High temperatures by maybe a fan failure in your VFD, and basically anything that could damage a motor or computer. VFDs are just computers that are sitting out there tied to your motor.
All right. I think we'll move on to protecting our equipment. For this one, we have Bobby Johnson with us.
Good morning. Basically, protecting your equipment is just an additional insurance policy. Some of the most common issues with the VFDs or just your control panel out in the field is somewhat preventable from a protection aspect. Things are going to happen on the power lines out beyond our control, beyond your control. As far as the motors themselves go, something called a motor saver, which is a trademark name of a piece of equipment that will protect against under voltage, phase loss, and a variety of other type issues. Not a real costly investment. As you see, we've talked to some local electricians, and roughly $200 to $300 will put this piece of protection. A lot cheaper than replacing a multi-$1,000 motor or control panel. Another type of failure that we see out in rural America, of course, is transients. To protect from those type of incidents is a surge suppressor. This is typically installed right at the motor, to protect from lightning damage, protect from some other failure within the actual irrigation system itself. Another fairly reasonably priced insurance policy, if you will. So a couple of different ways. If you don't have this type of protection on your systems, highly recommend talking with your electrician or your irrigation equipment provider to possibly add this type of equipment. Okay, so many VFDs will have protection built into those, but some of the more common pieces of equipment that would protect that VFD, as Cole said, that's basically just a computer sitting out in the middle of the field. So add a surge suppressor. Your local electricians will have access to this device. It's a very common device. It's also used in your homes quite often. So either talk to an electrical distributor, but go directly to an electrician or whoever does work on your equipment. They'll be able to help you with that.
To safety, Dean Kuhnke, our safety director.
Good morning. Thank you all for attending. We're just going to go over a few quick safety elements. Meters, don't pull them. If you need the power disconnected, please call us. We'll be more than happy to dispatch linemen out there to safely de-energize your service. We don't even allow our linemen to pull meters on three-phase equipment just due to the dangers, especially potential for arc flash out there. When you're dealing with arc flash, especially in a meter can or a meter box, it greatly increases the amount of damage or flash that there could potentially be. So bottom line, let's not be pulling any meters. I know many of you know this already, but just wanted to give you a quick review. Please call us. Anytime you're working on equipment, we highly recommend, use your safety equipment, your personal protective equipment, wearing gloves. Sometimes it doesn't seem all that handy, but good protection for our hands and fingers. Safety glasses. A lot of times people don't think about them unless they're, maybe using a grinder. But even when you're using a hammer or who knows what you may be using, we never know when something may accidentally break and risk the potential for getting a piece of metal in your eye or dust particles. A lot of the things that we're dealing with anymore, technology is great, but along with that requires a lot of training to know exactly what it is that we're doing. Just as we stress with our own employees, know your limitations. When in doubt, get some help. Call and ask your electricians or your irrigation supply dealer for troubleshooting problems. Just make sure that you're knowledgeable in what it is that you're working on. And in the end, once again, if you need to be working on something or you need to get an electrician out there to work on something, if it needs to be de-energized, please give us a call. We'll get there as soon as we can. The earlier we know that it needs to be de-energized, the quicker we can get out there. So Some of the things that we deal with once in a while is some hazards that are out there in the field. And while it may not be real noticeable to all, these are things that we see as troublesome. If you look in the top left-hand corner there, we see a single-phase power line going through there, not much to look at, but one of the things we at Dawson Power see right away is where that auger's at. Basically the end of the auger is almost directly underneath the line, and that's a real scary situation. So make sure when you're moving around those high pieces of equipment such as augers, or maybe it's a field implement of some sorts, be aware of where the power lines are at. Always keep in mind if and when you decide to put in maybe new grain bins, keep them away from the line. Contact us, let us be involved to help you with some of those decisions so that we can let you know what the rules are out there for the National Electric Safety Code. In the top right hand corner, sometimes there's some dirt work that has to be done out in the countryside, and just wanted to remind everyone that our poles typically are only in the ground on average roughly about 6.5 feet. And so when there's dirt work being done, we need to be notified if it's around any of the power poles, so that if we have to, we can make the next necessary changes, or maybe we could also be involved in on whatever design or is going on there to help eliminate some of these potential hazards from arising. In the bottom center there, around our substations, we'd really appreciate it if nobody parked equipment around there, just due to the fact that we never know if and when we may have to get in there and do work. I realize it's a great place to get stuff out of the way, but there's also the hazard of what if something catastrophic would go wrong there. Then also that piece of equipment's got the potential to be damaged or harmed there as well. Few more hazards here. Just when you're looking around, you know, if you have any outlets like this, whether it be in the barn, on the side of an old garage, I don't know, around your grain bins, make sure that you have the proper covers on there. It's not just for your safety, but everybody's safety. It's also a potential fire hazard. Then in the center picture there, understand that sometimes you need things lit up around the place so that you can see what's going on. Well, in this particular instance, these are customer owned lights that were put on a primary pole. And what I mean by primary pole is that our primary voltage lines of 7200 are attached to this pole. Any pole that has primary lines on it, we do not allow customer equipment on. In this case, if this was the pole that must have the light on it, it needs to be one of our lights. If you do not want one of our lights, then we would highly suggest setting another pole a ways away from this pole, and then installing your own lights and running power to them accordingly. And then to the far right, this is an example of well shed that it served its purpose. It needs to be replaced or done away with, and just put a service panel in there for your irrigation service. Some of these here can be great potential fire hazards, and I'm sure you're all aware how we've been around here, and we sure don't need any fires starting up from that. But if you have anything like this, please let us know. We can come out, disconnect the power so that you can get it torn down and replaced. I can't remember, Marcia, do I have any more slides?
I think this is it.
Okay. If there's any questions, feel free to ask throughout the rest of the program, and that's for any of us that have spoken this morning on any subject. At any point in time, if you have any questions, please submit them, and we'll get them answered.
Okay, we're going to talk about incentives, the way that we give you money for your improvements on your irrigation system with Bobby Johnson again.
Yes, this is one of the more enjoyable aspects of my job here. Unfortunately, Lori takes your money from you, but I get to give some back. We participate in what's called the Energy Wise program. It's a program we work in cooperation with Nebraska Public Power District and all other rural utilities. We all invest money into one big pot. Then everybody shares that big pot and gives money back to our customers who do projects that will actually use less energy. Of course, as we all know, that's been a program that's been around for many, many years as far as using less energy, going back all the way to the 80s. It was a big push. Use less energy. It's going to cost less money to use less energy than invest in new type of energy production facilities. So we all work on this together. Go back if you would, please, Marcia. Just a quick little note there. You see these dollar values here. In the total EnergyWise program last year, Dawson Power actually reimbursed to our customers over $300,000. For our irrigation customers, you see that wasn't a very big chunk. We do have rebates available for our irrigation and ag customers, but we really haven't been able to either get the message out to our customers or they haven't had an application that would actually work with one of our programs. So ask questions about these rebates if you aren't aware of them. Well, we want to help you out as much as we can with these programs. Okay, Marcia. So for irrigation customers, we have two basic types of programs, some that are called prescriptive and others that are called custom. Our prescriptive programs are just, they'll give you a fixed dollar amount for some type of improvement that you do. Our two main prescriptive programs are a VFD on a corner pivot system. We'll rebate you $12 times the nameplate horsepower on that system. A new one that we just added last year, something that our irrigation dealers really would like more of you to invest in this project. Those sprinklers have been out in the field for many, many years. We're going to help you upgrade those. It's a flat rate $500 rebate. Typical 7-tower system, what I've seen, is going to cost you around $3,000 to $4,000. So we're giving a good percentage of that to help you make that investment. Our custom programs, we're kind of expanding those this year. We're going to hopefully get the word out that if you make some type of improvement on your irrigation system, and we can either calculate or actually show that you did have energy savings, we can do a rebate on those projects. Some of the most common ones that we do are just simply replacing that pump motor. Rebuild that well pump in any way, retool the bowl, change some equipment that's going to make that thing run more energy efficient. If you're not sure how efficient your system may be, we also have a program that'll help pay for that pump efficiency test. So before you make changes, you want to see if there's some potential room for improvement. Have your irrigation contractor do a pump efficiency test, and we'll actually help with the cost of that test.
I had a question, Bobby. Do they have to call you before they do these improvements, or is it okay if they call you after?
With the prescriptive programs, it's not that critical that you call me before or after. But with the custom programs, yeah, let's have a conversation beforehand. You may not totally understand how much potential there may be for energy savings, and we can do some calculations. We've got a lot of historical data. So it's best to actually talk through that program before you do it in the custom side.
Maybe you know this or maybe you don't know this, but do some of these energy efficiency upgrades, do they also qualify for like a REAP grant or something like that from USDA?
Anything in the agricultural industry, there are some great assistance available through the USDA. With the Rural Energy for America program, you can qualify for rebates on, it's mainly some of the bigger projects. For example, you have an old diesel irrigation system. There's a program to help replace that. So mainly the bigger projects, you'll find some grant assistance with those. So how are we going to determine actual energy savings on some of these improvements? Well, we're going to do that. The easiest way is our metering system provides great information. This information is similar to what you can see yourself with the Smart Hub tool that Lori talked about earlier. What we're looking at here is energy consumed by a pivot system. Each one of those vertical blue bars is how much energy that system used in a 15-minute interval. The scale on the left side tells you how many kilowatt hours that system used in that 15-minute interval. So this is a very typical pivot system, but this just happens to be a corner arm pivot system with an end gun on that. As you can see, pretty steady, constant power draw on this system. You see a few small increases every now and then. That's when that corner arm is extended and that end gun is probably running. So there is slight variation on that, but not a whole lot. But now let's kind of take a look at how can we improve this system? Well, what if we add a VFD to a corner arm system? Now our pattern looks quite a bit different. The valleys are when that corner arm is pulled in and the end gun is not running. Before, that energy consumption was way up top. The system was running full out, maximum power all the way around in the full rotation. Well, you don't need all that power when that corner arm is pulled in. So you can see fairly considerable savings by putting a VFD on a corner arm system. Other improvements, similarly, we could look at this data and see what type of actual improvement may be possible with those type of changes. Very commonly with the VFD installation on a corner arm system, we have actually measured in the ballpark of 25% savings on your energy use. That isn't going to improve your demand charges, but it's going to do a considerable savings on your energy usage through the season. Especially this last season, it would have been nice to have energy savings with this tough season that you did have, being so hot and dry.
I'm just going to look at him one more time. I just think that's very dramatic.
And again, as I said, this is information that is available to you through the Smart Hub app. You can use that data to follow trends, see if something's not working properly. Once you get to using this data enough, you'll be able to identify how your system is operating.
And we probably want to mention that Bobby and our billing team are able to help you out with any questions you have on that data. If you're not quite sure what you're seeing or you're not finding the pattern, they may be able to help you see that.
Another type of rebate we have for potential irrigation systems or just your farmstead or your home is a transfer switch rebate. Pretty simple process. Put a transfer switch in and give us a call. We'll process a rebate depending on the size of your service, either $200 or $300. There are a few stipulations to qualify for that rebate, so check with us and we'll outline that criteria. It's basically 3 simple criteria. Install that transfer switch near our meter, have it installed by a licensed electrician, and we ask that that transfer switch be what we call a double throw transfer switch that has a center off position. There are plenty other ways to install transfer switches, but to meet our program, you need to meet those 3 specific criteria.
And that transfer switch is going to let you connect a generator safely and not send power out back through our system and potentially to one of our crews that are working on a down power line during an ice storm. Now we'll move on to some headlines that we've been making. Dawson Public Power District and Central Nebraska Public Power and Irrigation District have been starting some interesting conversations. And so we have Gwen Kautz here to talk about that with us.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We're going to kind of keep this high level, and I know if you do have questions, you can enter them and someone will read them to me. Basically, you're looking at two very different entities. You're looking at a generator entity and you're looking at a distribution system entity. And we feel like there are some synergies there that would be very beneficial to both sides of the companies. Now, Central has a little bit more of a complex business model, but we're not finding it to be anything that would be alarming, because they do a lot of stuff with the recreational, and we're looking forward to working more closely with them on these things. Okay. One of the questions that I get frequently is, how did we start? What did we do? And it started off with a meeting with Central's manager, Devin Brundage, on if we could buy their hydropower. And we are in an all requirements contract with the Nebraska G&T through NPPD, and we can't. Now, we can buy a little bit of it, but we can't buy the 63 megawatts that they were going to have come up in 2024. But that just kind of opened the door to looking at some other things. First of all, and you'll see it a little bit later in this presentation, there is the territory is pretty similar. We know that the businesses would complement each other. And we also know that when we looked at our organizational charts, there were very few duplicate jobs. So there wouldn't be any personnel impacts. And of course, we have similar customers, the irrigators. That's a big deal. And we would like to look at ways to help them. And Manager Brundage and I feel like there are some economic development opportunities to keeping hydropower central to Nebraska, which is our service territory and part of theirs. And we think we can find a lot of economic development opportunities that benefit the communities as a whole, not just the two companies. So this is where we're at. Devin and I did an initial screening. We put together pros and cons. We took a look at legal issues, and we decided that there was enough of a fit that allowed us to ask our boards to fund a consultant to take a look at the more details. The truth is, we don't know what we don't know. And I don't know what questions to ask. I've never been through a consolidation or merger before, and I want to make sure that we provide the right information to make sure that this is good for both sides. So we took presentations to our board, and we hired a consultant to do the due diligence piece. Right now, that has just kicked off 2 weeks ago, and we are in the data compilation part of it. So this Friday, we have about almost 100 pieces of data to share with the consultant. Phase 2 will tell us quite a bit about the financial side of things, how we fit. And then if after phase 2, the directors feel like this isn't going to work for us, everybody can walk away without a problem. Every phase has to have board approval, and we'll know more. And we are at phase 3 would be a plan that was put together. And again, if a board doesn't like that plan, I'm sure it can be tweaked, that's for sure. But we also know that it might not work well for both sides of the company. We really need this to be a win-win-win. A win for Dawson Power's customers, a win for Central's customer base or their stakeholders, and a win for Central Nebraska. We know that's important. So let's say they accept the consolidation plan as written by PSC, or they make their own tweaks to it, whatever. We'll present those findings, and then the board will make a final decision about whether or not we go forward with this. This is that map I was telling you about, and as you can see, there is a fit physically with each other. Now, the white areas are service areas that Central deals with, and Dawson does not have the ability to take on any electric customers in that area. But other than that, we feel like the flow is right and it works well. Are there any questions? There will be an article in the Dynamo in February that will address the most common fielded questions I've been getting. But if you have more, the contact information in that article will contain both my information and Devin Brundage's information if you wanted to reach out to either side.
I am not seeing any questions right now.
Okay.
I think this is an exciting project. You've enjoyed working on it, I know.
It is very unique, and it's going to take a lot of, I don't want to say work because the work doesn't bother any of us, but it is going to take a lot of flexibility to make sure that we can work in and around each other and help each other and make it right and make it good for everybody.
All right. Well, we're close to the closing here. I guess the big thing that I'd like you to take away from this meeting is we've given you a lot of information. If it's been a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, we understand that. We'll reprint most of it in the irrigation newsletter. You are always, always welcome to give us a call or send us an email. We're here for you. Our customers are very important to us. Be aware of those power factor changes. If you're having problems getting capacitors, give Cole a call. And always remember that incentives may be available. That's a great program and it's helped out so many people. I'm not seeing any questions come in. So with that, I really thank you for giving us some of your time today. I hope that you had your cup of black coffee, your preferred beverage, and maybe got to warm up a little bit before you go out and do your work. Like I say, go ahead.
I want to say thank you too, but I also want to tell you that we really planned this a year ago to meet in person with everybody and hold it in 3 different locations. But, you know, plans get sidelined for other reasons. So I want to thank you for spending some time with us today this way.
Well, and I hope that sometime in the future, we will be able to meet with everybody face to face. There is no substitute for that. So we'll hope that we can do that soon. With that, thank you so much for your time today. Goodbye.